Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so in this particular video, we're going to be talking about the Washington Wizards. They have a brand new look team, brand new coaching staff, brand new everything. It seems like the only thing they're going to be bringing back is a few players, but everything else is all new. And so we'll break down what we see here and we'll talk about it. Let's see. First off, we want to talk about their coach. They just hired a guy in July by the name of Wes Unseld Jr. Of course, we know of his father, Wes Unseld, great NBA player. Wes Unseld Jr. spent the last 6 years as a Denver assistant coach, one of the Nuggets guys. So we know that he is coming from a very, very good situation. One of the highly touted assistant coaches around the league getting an opportunity with the Washington Wizards. So we're going to see. Obviously, it's a lot to learn more so about Wes than for myself than to tend to share. I don't know enough about his coaching style or anything to share. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he uses these players. One of the issues that the Washington Wizards have had is just how their players have been used. Certain players they have just aren't being used properly. So hopefully Wes can come in and kind of fix all of that. So the first name on the roster you want to mention for sure is obviously Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is the guy. When you're talking about the Washington Wizards, he's been here since he was drafted way back in it's been about 7 or 8 years. And he's been an all-star, man. He's been an all-star every year almost, it seems like. Just continuing to increase his value in terms of a scorer. Somebody who you can drop 30 on you any time, any day. Just one of the more fluent, all-around, gifted basketball players in the league right now. You know, you talk about fantasy basketball, he's one of the top guys you're drafting at that shooting guard position. Just an elite scorer at this stage. Who's ready to win. You know, I know for a fact he's ready to win. He hasn't been in a winning situation because he's played his whole career in Washington. And he's been patient. You know, he's been patient with the team. He loves that team. That's his city. That's his, it's his home. And he's being patient with them. It's sort of like you see in other situations like Dame in Portland. That's kind of what you see with Bradley Beal. But I think Bradley Beal's situation is much better because you can see flexibility with this team. You see upside with the roster. You can overall see them making decisions that ultimately make them a better team. So I've liked everything that the Washington Wizards have done over the last couple of years. And I think Bradley Beal, if he has a little patience in him to kind of put up with the rebuilding process, I'd say that process is starting off very, very well. So let's get into furthermore more of the roster. Rui Hachimura is on this team. I did some homework on him, so I'll tell you a little more about him later. Dinwiddie as well, same deal. Corey Kissberg, same deal. Isaiah Todd, same deal. So those players are young players that I think will have a role with this team, and I will tell you all about them in the second half of the video. But going forward, we got, of course, Kyle Kuzma is the next name I want to mention. A guy played with the Lakers his whole career. He's a champion with the Lakers. We know him well. If you followed me, you can probably go through many videos of me breaking down both the good and the bad of Kyle Kuzma. But ultimately, this is somebody that I'll remember as an NBA champion for the Los Angeles Lakers. Somebody who started off with a real strong rookie year, extremely strong in regards to his summer league, playing with Lonzo Ball and just completely lighting up Vegas, showing us exactly what type of upside he has and making himself look like one of the great second-round pickups in the history of the sport. But his development hasn't gone as well as you would think after that point. After we traded away Lonzo Ball, I kind of felt like we had a hard time finding ways of making him look good. He had his moments. Of course, we remember games like, for example, against the Houston Rockets, he went for 40. He loves playing in that building, by the way. The Toyota Center, he loves playing there. But, it's one of those situations where, we've seen him play well, but the majority of the time we've just kind of find ourselves frustrated, hoping that he would show us the potential that he showed us in that summer league, but never quite actually being able to capture the consistency that we were looking for. So the Lakers move on from this player, but I think it's for the best for him to be in this situation because he'll have more opportunity to kind of spread his wings and less pressure to perform. And not only that, but now he comes in as somebody who brings experience. So he's got a leg up on some of the other guys he's going to be competing with in regards for minutes. And not only that, but he will help this team in regards to having some experience with the championship positions that he's been in. So you go from a situation where Kuzma, you're looked at to kind of be developed quickly, and then you're looked at to be like a superstar, more or less a third star to AD and LeBron, which is way too much of a role for him at this stage of his career. But then you leave that situation and go to a situation where you're kind of going to be looked at to be someone who helps the guys, kind of helps them reach the expectations that ultimately are in the cosmos, like for the Lakers, like the expectations he had as a Laker. So I think he comes in with a great deal of an advantage in terms of what he's able to endure going forward with this team. Being patient, having played with some bad teams, being patient, having played with some good teams. He's seen it all with the Lakers. And ultimately, there's nothing that the Washington Wizards are going to throw at him that he hasn't already seen. And that's a very, very good thing. Having endured, obviously, the 2020 season with the Lakers, losing Kobe. This is somebody who got a chance to know Kobe before he passed away. Someone who's had lunch with Kobe and sat down with Kobe, really spoke with him, that kind of thing. So he endured that just as tough as everybody else out here, and winning championships, the bubble, and all of that. So the experience that Kyle Kuzma brings to this Washington Wizards team is going to prove maybe even more valuable than what he brings on the court early on. Whether he struggles or not, he's going to have stories and experiences and things of that nature to share with these young players, whom they have a lot of, and I think that's going to rub off on them in quite a way. I think he's going to be somebody that Bradley Beal looks to be reliable, which is something that Kyle Kuzma is going to have to prove to Bradley Beal that he can be. Obviously, Bradley's paid attention to what's going on in LA. I'm sure he's watching just like the rest of us. He knows of Kyle Kuzma's strengths and struggles, but he's going to be somebody that Kyle looks at and says, that Bradley looks at and says, hey, you're going to be somebody that if we're going to win games, it's going to be because you played well and because you contributed quite a bit. So I expect Kuz to start with this team, but he will have a lot of competition, and that is not set in stone. Absolutely not set in stone. What is set in stone, though, is that he will have a role with the squad for sure. They will definitely use him, and if he's able to prove himself to be the scorer that we know he can be, with help from some of the facilitators on this team, which we'll talk about because I think he needs that, he'll be able to find a rhythm with the squad. And Wes Unseld, hopefully, is the type of coach that can get the most out of Kuzma. We'll see, though. We'll definitely see. All right, next up, Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie's a guy that's coming off an injury. Hasn't played in, 2 years, seems like? Maybe 2 years. Brooklyn net player. Spent, if I'm not mistaken, a good majority of his career there. Started with Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. He's kind of played there. Showed some pop with Detroit as a rookie and as a second-year player, I think. And then was moved on to Brooklyn, where he was able to spread his wings and really show what he was about. Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the best non-starting guards out there. Before pre-injury, he was a very, very, very reliable six-man of the year candidate type of player. Someone in that Dennis Schroeder lane, in my opinion. He's one of those type of guys. He's in that lane, in my opinion. The thing about him, though, he has to figure out his conditioning at this point, coming back from injury. It's been a long time since he's been out there. But he's a very, very smart basketball player. Somebody who is well-rounded. Known for being a part of different things outside of basketball, like the crypto space. He was in that early, that kind of thing. So this is a very, very smart basketball player, someone who is going to bring a unique point of view to that Washington Wizards team as a point guard, a guy who's probably going to step in and be ready to be a starting point guard. And I think he's out to prove that he's an all-star caliber player. I really believe that. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie sees himself as anything less than a player who hasn't shown that he can be that level player. So depending on how his conditioning goes and how well this roster kind of plays with him, I think he'll be able to kind of carve out over time what his actual upside will be. I don't know that he can jump out the gate and be the old Spencer Dinwiddie, but I know that he's still young enough to kind of put forth the type of healthy season that can get him to a space where he's in that condition years from now. 2, 3, 4 years from now, I can totally see him being a Mike Conley type of guy, finally making an all-star team type of guy, if he's able to just get some healthy years ahead, because the talent is already there. He's already shown that. So, we'll see how he bounces back from injury and how he incorporates himself into this new system with these new team, new players, new everything. So it's going to be a huge mystery. It's a question mark in regards to Spencer Dinwiddie, but I can tell you the last time we saw him, he was damn near close to an all-star. That's what I can say. All right, next up, Daniel Gafford, player I really, really like. They got out of Chicago. They made a trade with the Chicago Bulls and were able to get this player as well as another guy that they ended up sending to San Antonio in Chandler Hutchinson, or rather signed with San Antonio. And I think he signed with somebody else too, so he's been jumping around this offseason. But Daniel Gafford has been able to find a spot with this Washington Wizards team and land there. Really, really high upside, lob catching big. Somebody you can definitely count on to block some shots, rebound the ball, catch lobs, as I said. Just a really, really active player. Unfortunately, he went down with an injury as well, which is a running theme for this team last season. But all in all, he was able to show exactly what type of upside he had and what type of role he can carve out for this team before going down at the end of the season. So I think he's ready to step right back in and be yet another one of these players in their rotation that has a lot of energy. Energetic bigs is what the name of the game is for the Washington Wizards. They have a lot of them, and he's one of them. Next up, yet another one of those guys, an energetic big by the name of Montrez Harold. And we know Montrez Harold very well. Montrez Harold, if I'm not mistaken, started his career with the Houston Rockets, was a part of the infamous trade to the Clippers that brought the Houston Rockets Chris Paul and sent a bunch of guys, including Patrick Beverley and Trez, to the Clippers, where they were able to make names for themselves and so on and so forth. We know Montrez Harold then switched sides, came over to the Lakers. We were happy to have him, but unfortunately our coach wasn't able to get the most out of him in the second half of the season. Upon bringing in Andre Drummond, it was a situation where we chose to give Andre Drummond the minutes that we should have been giving Montrez Harold, as to which I think was a grave mistake for our team and ultimately left us not even able to leave the first round. As well with a unhappy Trez, who probably would have been able to give us a lot more than we even asked him to do. This is somebody who, if I'm not mistaken, was either runner-up or the Sixth Man of the Year. I think he won Sixth Man of the Year previous to us receiving him. And we just didn't find a role for him that was comparable to what it is that he's capable of doing. I think the Washington Wizards will obviously have a role that's better than the one that we had for him, for himself individually, but of course not going to be doing as much winning, of course, whatever. If we're getting knocked out of the first round with the Lakers anyway, what's the difference? At the end of the day, I just felt like Trez got a bad rap, kind of wasted the season with the Lakers. Probably the biggest L we took as a Laker team in terms of how an individual player's tenure went with us this past season. It just should have been better. We should have did better by him or traded him and got something for him. That's what I think should have happened. But all in all, Trez is going to be with the Washington Wizards, where I think he'll be in rotation with Daniel Gafford, Thomas Bryant, and several other guys in this rotation that would ultimately make up their center position. They're very good with that center position if all those guys are coming back healthy. So yeah, Trez, high energy, you know what it is. High energy guy, inside presence, rebounding force of nature. If you give him 30 minutes a game, he shows you he's one of the most elite rebounders in the game. Even though he's slightly undersized and is not stretching the floor, he's still somebody who's going to give you high level production. He's a fairly good free throw shooter as well, so you trust him in the paint, drawing fouls. So I just didn't like how we used Trez, but I think Washington will have a better tenure with him there this season. All right, next name up, since we've already mentioned him, Thomas Bryant, yet another guy that's played for the Lakers. And everybody on this team has pretty much played for the Lakers at one point or another, it seems. Thomas Bryant is yet another one of the youngsters for the Lakers that came along. He was raw with us, so what I saw from him was a lot of upside, and he's since turned into a really, really good player. But unfortunately, the injury bugs have bit him as well. He's gone down with a couple knee injuries, if I'm not mistaken, that have kind of kept him out of the mix. But when he was out there, he was close to an all-star, his dang self. Somebody who's capable of shooting the three, but more so an inside presence with a big body 7-footer, long arms, a lot of energy, can set good screens, things that you want your center to do. He can do all those things with a lot of energy. What I'm saying is killer instinct. What's that high motor stuff, that energy stuff that you have with somebody who just has a huge high motor, always screaming, always passionate. That's what you're getting out of Thomas Bryant. He's going to not only give you what he has on the court, but he's also going to be somebody that brings a lot of passion to the floor for that locker room. So I really like TB on this team. I wonder if they're going to keep him because of the presence of Daniel Gafford and Trez. It kind of makes them a little bit deep in that rotation, but being that 2 out of those 3 guys are coming back from injury, I don't think that's going to be a problem they have to address right away. So, next up, we will talk about Aaron Holiday. They got out of Indiana, started his career with Indiana, developed there very well. I can't say I know a whole lot about Aaron Holiday in terms of a player, but I can definitely say that he's from the Holiday clan. You know, his brothers, obviously Rui Holiday just won a championship, and he has another brother in the league as well, if I'm not mistaken, still with the Pacers himself. So, yeah, man, Aaron Holiday is going to come in. I know of his numbers. He's a guy who can get some steals for you, can get some scoring numbers for you, rebound, all early in his development. But the numbers that I was able to see showed me that he has ability to do just about everything. So he's getting better. He's going to come in and also compete for that starting role at that point guard position, although they have a lot of players that can kind of do that with. It'll be him, Dinwiddie, kind of competing for that. And I think the upside for Aaron Holiday is pretty good, man. I think they have a really, really good player there. And it's just about continuing to push his career on. It's his first new team. And I'm excited to see what the Wizards have in store for him, what Wes Unselt's going to do there. All right, next up, KCP. Now, we know KCP, Laker fans. We've had this guy for the last 5 years almost, something like that. He helped us get LeBron. Basically, he helped us get LeBron, which helped us get AD. We all know what KCP was here for. Laker fans, we all know. It was about getting us a lifeline toward the King early. We got him in like 2 years before King got here because we were trying to make sure we had a phone call away to the King. And let me tell you, KCP made some good money with the Lakers because we were overpaying him every single year to ensure that we had that going on. And it worked. We got LeBron, we got AD, we got championship. All of it worked out, and KCP never made us regret having him at that inflated price because he always came in, played defense for us, never complained, was an excellent weapon shooting the ball. Not as consistent as we'd like him to be, but ultimately when it came down to it in the end, he was a huge part of why we won the NBA championship in 2020. He hit big shots, he played good defense, he made sure he was available in these playoffs, and I'll remember him as that. He's an NBA champion with the Lakers. You know, that's one of those things where if you're a Laker fan, all of our players, we talk about winning championships, it's like we hold them in a certain pedestal. So you got two of our champions on this team. And really, I think you're going to be better for it, honestly. KCP is somebody who's only getting better, only becoming more comfortable in his role. Was an excellent weapon for LeBron James, an excellent weapon on the defensive side of the ball, which the Lakers will miss, which the Washington Wizards will love. This guy's going to help you defensively. I don't know what type of team you're going to be defensively at all, but with the presence of KCP, you got a better shot at it. I can tell you that. All right, let's see. The next name I want to mention here is Davos Bertons. Now, Davos Bertons is a player who's just a pure three-point shooter, stretch four guy, quintessential stretch forward. Guy doesn't need to take a whole lot of dribbles to get 20 points because he can shoot the ball without any help at all. Just a real pure three-point sharpshooter. Problem with him, in my opinion, is he doesn't really do anything else. So in a league where guys are coming in with so much versatility, guys are coming in who can shoot the ball as well as do a bunch of other stuff, is what I'm saying. It kind of brings down the value of a guy like this. But in a system where you just simply need someone to stretch the floor for you, he's still somebody that you very much need. So this team has done a great job in putting shooters on their roster. To go along with Bradley Beal, they've done a fantastic job. They're going to be a three-point shooting team. Now, I don't know if they have the glue piece that's going to make it all come together just yet, but I can tell you, for a guy who facilitates, like let's say a Ben Simmons, for a guy like that, you got your shooting weapons to make this make sense. You know, if you're John Wall, want to come back to Washington, God, I know he doesn't want to do that, but if, for say, a guy like John Wall were to come back to this team strictly because they are facilitating shooters, he could come here and get his assist numbers, is what I'm saying to you. So I don't think they're not going to get John Wall back. Jesus, they didn't give that up to get it back. But I'm just saying to you guys, like, for a guy like Ben Simmons or a guy like that who looks to pass the rock, you got your shooters in place. You just don't really have your facilitator. So, and that's up for debate. We'll talk about that. But Davos Bertons is here, yet another shooter. Next up, Raul Neto, young player, played with the Golden State Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. Not Golden State, excuse me, OKC Thunder. Was a point guard there. I saw him do a couple things, but I'm not really as familiar with Raul Neto as I'd like to be. But I did see him do good things against my Lakers playing for that OKC Thunder team, coming off their bench as a guard. So I think he'll be able to help them this year. Of course, he played with the Washington Wizards last year and had a really good year as well with Westbrook. They played off each other pretty well, I saw. So that's about as much as I know about Raul Neto. Just another role-playing guard on the team that'll help them a lot. All right, they got some guys down here that I didn't do homework on, but will be on the roster this year. A guy by the name of Anthony Gill, Garrison Matthews, Jay Huff, Jaime Echung. I'm sorry, I'm not going to mess up his name, but his name is Jaime. So he's going to be on this team as well. They got a guy out of St. Louis University, Jordan Goodwin. He's undrafted. A guy by the name of Cassius Winston's a rookie. They got the 53rd pick, 6'1" player out of Michigan State. And the rest of the players on this team are guys that I did homework on, so we'll break them down right now. All right. So the first guy that I did a little homework on is a guy by the name of Isaiah Todd. 6'9" guy with a 7-foot wingspan, a shooting big that they took with the first pick in the second round, 31st pick. Guy went to the G League like Kuminga, like Green. This was the third player picked out of that G League Ignite team. And he's just a nice scoring stretch 4 player. Long arms. He's a shooting big, you know. Yet another one of those guys that they, like I said, they put shooting on this team. Here's one of the names. He runs the floors very well. Runs the floor very well. He shoots over 36% from 3 last year with the G League team, which is a solid percentage. It's not stellar, but it lets you know that the ability to get better is there and that you can't leave him alone out there. He has a beautiful release. He's a floor spacer, back to the basket ability, ISO ability. So he can kind of put the ball on the floor for himself a little bit. Back to the basket player, so on and so forth. Not really someone you want dribbling in front of people, but if you give him an ISO, at the elbow, or if you give him an ISO in the paint, he can do some things, turn around, fade, up and unders, pump fakes and stuff like that. He has a little bit of post energy there. He has a very smooth touch, turnaround jumpers, as I said. Some passing upside. He does touch passes that really stood out in the video that I did homework on. They were talking a lot about how he's able to make quick touch passes, hockey assists, and things of that nature. He can help facilitate your team, even though it didn't really show up in the stats like that. Mid-range player. He likes shooting the three. He's kind of mid-range eccentric, from what I understand. So he's going to have to spread the floor a bit more. But the good thing is this team has a couple mid-range players and a couple three-point shooters, so he may be able to use his mid-range ability on this roster a little more than maybe the average NBA team because of it. So I'm very curious to see what Coach Unseld will do with Isaiah Todd, because even though he's a second-round player, we know this is one of the deepest drafts in the league. It wouldn't shock me at all if this turns out to be a really good player, even in the second round. We've seen that before. He's a corner shooter. He's definitely somebody you put out there in the corner. He can hit those shots. Pick and pop guy, put him in a pick and roll and he'll pop for you. Uses screens like a guard, surprisingly enough. He bounces off of screens very well. With a big body, you love that. He rotates very well around behind the arc, puts himself in a position to catch and shoot. Pull-up potential. He can step into a couple of shots himself. Mobile finisher, hustler, quick leaper and finisher in traffic. So he's just an all-around nice big with some motors and the ability to stretch the floor for you. Very, very nice player with a 7-foot wingspan. So he has a high shooting point, so holds it over his head, shoots it high. This is somebody who's going to be difficult to guard as he continues to develop. And I think he lands in a good spot because they have a lot of players on this team that are going to take pressure away from other shooters, so long as they have that facilitator in place. So that's Isaiah Todd for you. All right, the next guy we're going to mention, one of their guys they drafted last year, of course, very early in the draft, Dinwiddie Advija. Dinwiddie Advija, 9th pick in the draft last year from Israel, a 6'9" player with a 6'9.5" wingspan that might have grown since then. That was his college breakdown draft video that I was taking this on. So I think some of these players have grown since then. But 41% from field goal in his college year, 31% from three, so he could get better there, and 64% free throw shooter. So he's not the greatest from the line or from behind the arc, but he can definitely finish some. You want him passing the rock. This is the facilitator that I said they need to make all the shooters that they have on this floor really make sense. And if he can be the passer that they want him to be, they got all kinds of shooting all over this roster. But they need him to become that, and he's coming off of a very, very serious injury, Paul George type injury where it was very gruesome to his right fibula. So from what I understand, back in, I think it was May, that it was May, he was able to take off his walking boot. So he should be almost ready to go. I think, they're going to probably bring him back a little. They're going to bring him back slowly, but all in all, I think it's a decent chance he may actually be ready for the start of the season. I think based on what I've read, he might actually be ready, but it would be wise for them not to rush him back if he isn't. So just to get into him a little bit, he's a pick and roll guy, crafty guy, very, very, very creative with the ball in his hands, great Euro ball handling skills. So this dude will break you off the dribble. He'll put you in a blender, all that. You do not want to play with him. Euro steps, all that stuff. He's like one of those guys who mastered their style of dribbling. He's like I don't want to say their Iverson, but he can do a lot with the ball in his hands. You definitely want to give him that opportunity. Creative and unorthodox. Great cutter. Off ball comfortable. He's somebody that doesn't need to have the ball in his hands in order to be effective. Can catch the ball and create for others from there. As well as create for himself, slashing and things of that nature. Transition player, one of the best transitions players in that draft that year. Very, very fast, vertical. Fantastic vertical defender. He's a shot maker, good shooting stroke, ISO capable, can break you down, as I said. Must get stronger, and of course must recover from injury. So the thing about him last year was he wasn't being used properly. That was previous to the injury. But even during the time when he was given opportunities, he was asked to do things that he wasn't necessarily good at and wasn't given opportunities to do the things that he was. But they have a new coaching in place right now, and I think Wes Unseld will provide probably most likely an entirely different offense, an entirely different look. And I think they should definitely allow him to try to facilitate the basketball, put him in a Cade Cunningham kind of role if they want to get the best out of this roster. Now, I understand you have to deal with the fact that you have Spencer Dinwiddie, who's going to be looking for a starting position as a point guard. I also understand that you're going to be looking at the idea that, Aaron Holiday is also going to be looking for opportunities to do that at the guard spot. But what you have is a point forward who, even though, as I said, plays great without the ball, he needs it in his hands in order to get it to others. And since you don't have a facilitator outside of him, it seems, it would probably be best to give him the ball and let him be that for you. That way you can have the right dynamic with your shooters. See, the thing that I have a problem with the Clippers particularly is they have a lot of catch and shoot players too, but they don't have the facilitator in place to help those players get the ball in their hands in the right spot. So what ends up happening is they become useless players. They're not useless. They don't suck. They just don't have the player they need to make them make sense. As I said about Kyle Kuzma, as soon as we traded away Lonzo Ball, it was as if we had taken away what made Kuzma great. And that's what it is. He needs that facilitator. You know what I mean? And the only player I see on this roster thus far that can really do it consistently is Denny. It's what he does. It's his thing. He's a crafty pick and roll guy, a passer, playmaker. So at this point, if the Washington Wizards, obviously last year they couldn't do it because they had Westbrook. But if they really want to get this thing right with the Washington Wizards, you get Denny Avdija as your point guard. You want him controlling the offense. You want him Ben Simmonsing the offense. And if you give him that opportunity, let him fully facilitate, you will get so much more out of the rest of the roster. Now, I'm not saying that Spencer Dinwiddie can't facilitate. I'm not saying that. But I'm telling you that Denny Avdija is built to facilitate. That's his that's his job. So, as to where Spencer Dinwiddie, in my mind, is a shoot first player. So he still fits. You can still have him on the floor with Denny. Denny, he's a recipient as well of Denny's facilitating skills. But you have to have Denny running the offense in order to get the most out of the Washington Wizards. And if he does it effectively, they got so much shooting and so many athletic, energetic bigs that this team could overachieve. They really, really could. So that's what I think. Denny is so very important, but he has to come back from injury. That's the thing. We're not talking about just a hurt leg. We're talking about snapped fractures. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but I think that's what you're looking at. He is basically the piece that's going to glue everything together if he develops properly. All right. Next name up, let's get into Rui Hachimura, player out of Japan, Gonzaga to be exact, but a Japanese player, 6'8", 234 pounds, 7'1", wingspan. This is a physical player. Big hands, athletic, post player, just overpower you in the paint, open court threat, finishes with both hands. But he's a mid-range specialist as well, which is another thing that I like about them. They have that balance between the mid-range and the three-point shot and the interior play. They got different players doing different things, and it works in theory. Mid-range specialist. High release point as well. Definitely somebody that's going to be very difficult to block his shot, being at least 7'1" and shoots over his head that way. Has great touch, a lob threat, fantastic cutter, solid three-point shooter too. Good form. More of a set shot, not somebody that's going to be dribbling and jumping into the shot, but he can work on that and get better. Very, very quick first step. So Rui Hachimura is just a physical, power forward player, someone that you can run at the three as well, and he's just getting better and better. This is year 3 for him, I think, and with his skill set, he's always been good. He's always been effective, just kind of playing for a bad team. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a breakout this year. At some point in time, some of these guys that have been just kind of good are going to start getting really good. And a guy like Rui Hachimura is a fantastic candidate for that. I'm not saying he's going to win most improved player, but I'm saying that somebody in his lane probably will win most improved player. And that's what I'm saying. He's as good a candidate as any to be in that mix because of not only the role that he's in, but also just because of his natural progression as he continues to get better as a player. He's going to eventually get really good. It's just a matter of how soon and will it be with this team. So, I think he's going to help them a lot. Next guy up is a guy they drafted in the draft early this year. Corey Kissberg, their lottery pick. He is 6'7" with a 6'7" wingspan, a lot of balance there. 52% field goal shooter, 44% three-point shooter, and a 88% free throw shooter. So this is an elite shooting talent right here. A very, very talented, sharp shooting player. Cuts extremely well. That's another one of his extreme gifts. He's fantastic without the ball. Very, 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 very good without the ball. He can shoot the long ball, extremely capable of shooting from way beyond the arc. And he's elite. It's that simple. He has a very, very quick release, and you have to deal with this guy. He's a great perimeter relocation player. He understands how to get open, how to make himself available, even in live ball situations where it looks like the situation is chaotic. He knows how to put himself in a position to receive a three-point shot, and then knows how to make guys who close out on him pay. So this is a very dangerous scoring IQ player. Elite shooter, but also somebody who has no problem putting the ball on the floor and finishing on you if you rush at him at that three-point line. It's very, very important in that way. He has good balance and footwork, great IQ, read defense as well, as I said. Understands cutting angles, of course, as I said, and he's a fantastic transition scorer as well. Knows how to run the break to get it open in those situations. Got a live ball situation, 3-on-1, he's running to the corner, and he's a specialist at getting 3 points out of those situations. Dangerous as they come. I'm trying to tell you, he's dangerous because you don't find players that have this type of IQ and this type of shooting ability. He's going to be able to make himself available at all times to score from behind the arc. can shoot off passes and off a few dribbles. So in other words, he doesn't necessarily need you to create for him in order to score the three-point shot. He can dribble into it himself. He can kind of create for others. He's not a playmaker, not at all, but he is somebody who can make a good play here and there, make a good pass. His IQ comes from being a weapon for others. You know, he is the ideal guy for Ben Simmons. He's the ideal guy for LeBron James. The ideal guy for any pass-first player in the league is a guy with these type of attributes. He's your perfect running mate. Klay Thompson type stuff. Finishes well with both hands as well. And, you know, just all around fantastic offensive player. Defensively, no, that's not his game. Just like a lot of shooters, you know, he can be formidable in defensive settings as a team defender. He can help well. He's smart. But, nah, you don't want to put him in front of guys. It's going to be a bad day for him. His best offense, like a lot of great shooters, is his best defense is his offense. I think you understood what I'm trying to say there. As long as he's shooting, he's going to be a problem. So Corey Kissberg is a player that they're going to use right away, easily. His all his skills are translatable. You already know he can't play defense. So you're not going to kill yourself trying to force him to be a better defender. You just take what you can. You take what you can take, and you leave the rest alone. And many a player has made the Hall of Fame not being able to make a stop happen. That's not going to be a concern for me at all. As long as he is elite of a three-point shooter as this says he is, he's going to always have a role in this league, and he's always going to be very, very rich. That's just, he don't even have to be that good in other areas. All of that stuff tells me he's going to make $90 million out the gate. So, yeah, that Corey Kissberg is a no-brainer. One of the best shooters in the draft. Someone who's automatically gonna average at least 10 points a game, in my opinion. He's out the gate. That's just happening. So that completes my homework section. What I've done for the Washington Wizards in that regard. I've had a good time talking about the Wizards. Good time, doing a little homework on this team. They have a nice set of players that can kind of set them up for a good rebuilding situation. Make it so that Bradley Beal's not just running around with a bunch of scrubs. See, the problem I had with Kobe Bryant's situation as a Laker fan was a lot of times we were out there with a prime Kobe Bryant running with trash. Respectfully, because I'm not better basketball player than anybody, but the guys that were running out there professionally were not on par with the players that Kobe needed to play with in order to make his tenure during our rebuilding session palatable. It was awful to watch. My only thing with the Washington Wizards in this situation is don't have him running out there with garbage. And I think the Washington Wizards have done a good job of making sure that he's not. Last year, obviously, they made sure they got Russell Westbrook. They put themselves in a position to have a real Hall of Fame talent down there with him. So at least he wasn't run out there for nothing. That was fantastic. They had a good time. It worked out. They didn't win, but it's okay. This year, same thing. Now they can show that they have cap space, lots of shooting talent, space for a guy who's a much better player to say, you know what, I want to join them. A guy who makes $170 million can choose Washington, and they should have no problem being able to bring him into what it is that they do. This is a very good situation. Very good situation if you're a GM. I like the situation for the coaching staff. I like the situation for the players. The only thing is, Bradley, do you have a good 4 or 5 years to give this team so that they can build a team around you that can help you win a championship? Because that's how long it's going to take. About 4 or 5 years to get you in a position to really, really be a contender. But the way that they've built, the way that it's set up, once that 5-year period starts, you might be able to contend for several years because of how good of the moves that they've done. So it's like, if you really want to spend your career somewhere, you think you want to be there for the rest of your career, Washington looks like as good as a place to have a good 10-year trajectory as any team in the league right now because of their assets, because of the type of players that they have, because of the situation that ultimately they have with a player that wants to be there in Bradley Beal. So I like it. I like it. If I were a coach, I'd want to coach there. If I were a GM, I'd want a GM there. It just looks like a good situation. They've made good decisions. All they need is their draft picks to get healthy, the players that they've picked up that are prominent roles to get healthy. Because they've just had some bad breaks with Thomas Bryant and Denny Avdija, and ultimately now taking on Spencer Dinwiddie's injury as well. So that's going to be the thing. How well do those injured players step in Does Kuzma continue being inconsistent, or does he finally show us that he is who we believed him to be when we draft him, et cetera, et cetera? That's what I think of this Washington Wizards team. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No way. Absolutely not. This is one of the worst teams in the league on paper. But that's okay because you love their upside. You love the young players they have. You just want to see everybody on this team come together to form and define an identity. With the shooting that they have and the athletic, energetic centers that they have, it should not be hard to come together to figure out some type of identity. Mid-range shooters, three-point shooters, inside presence, everything you would want, except for stars. So this is what this team looks like to me ultimately. This is the Clippers before they got Kawhi and PG. They even got some of those players. They even got some of the players. This is who they are. And if they couple enough of these players together, maybe make a few good trades here and there, they might be able to swing enough assets to get the player that they ultimately want to help them win. Maybe they can do it through the draft. Maybe they tank this season, so to speak, get a top 3 pick and maybe get lucky that way. There are a lot of options, but the point is they have them. They're not strangle-held. They're not in bad cap situations. They don't have terrible contracts, none of that. This is a good situation. So that's what I think. Don't worry about this season. It's nothing. They're not going to make the playoffs, and you should not care. Just start doing homework on all the players in the top of the draft that you love and pray for good health, and that's it. Enjoy the youth because this youth movement time. Bradley Beal loves Washington. He seems like he's settled in. I wouldn't be in a rush to trade him unless he makes a trade demand. He seems happy. It's a good situation. Just got to wait on it. Anyway, that's what I got, man. Congratulations to Washington Wizards. I think you guys finally got out from underneath cap situations, bad stuff, and people bringing guns to the arena and all kinds of crap like that. It's a good situation. Now you just got to let it manifest. That's it. Let it hatch. That's all there is to do. My name is BDL44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.